At 2 in the morning, I stepped out of my room, and somehow, the entire village was already alive. Hundreds of travelers had gathered at the entry gate, and we started walking into the darkness. After almost an hour of hiking, I finally reached the Ijen blue fire. The smell of volcanic sulfur was intense, almost unimaginable. And seeing hundreds of people gathered around a volcano, at 3 in the morning, it felt less like a hike and more like some strange party happening inside a volcanic crater, surrounded by darkness, blue fire, and flickering lights. After one final view of the blue fire, I moved towards the crater rim, and in the cold and darkness, I waited for dawn. As the skies began to change colors, almost magically, the turquoise blue lake appeared in the first light of dawn. I had never seen a color like this on a lake before. I walked along the crater rim, just taking it all in. Down below, I could see the very spot where we had watched the blue fire earlier, now covered in smoke. And in the distance, Gunung Raung, with a small puff of smoke rising from its peak. All around me, hundreds of travelers were happy to be there, simply enjoying the moment. And then, suddenly, a layer of cloud rolled in, completely covering the lake. I felt grateful and quietly thanked nature for being kind to me, for letting me see something so beautiful. Walking back in the cool morning air, I could finally see Gunung Suket and Gunung Raung much more clearly. But what caught my attention were the locals, pushing travelers up and down the mountain in these trolleys, locally called Lamborghinis. Some travelers had missed the sunrise and were now being pushed uphill. I was honestly amazed by the sheer strength of these men, pushing people up this mountain. And by the time I reached the exit gate, the little market was already coming alive. I grabbed a plate of nasi goreng, took a shower, and slowly left this beautiful experience behind. Finally, it felt so good to be back on the bike, to start the engine, and feel the motorcycle move beneath me again. I had been longing for this moment. There's something about riding, something I find difficult to explain. Maybe it's the feeling of having nowhere to be, no one to follow, just you, your machine, and an open road ahead. The road slowly descended from the mountains. The air was cool, the curves were flowing, and greenery stretched endlessly on both sides. As I descended through the hills, the road twisted and turned like a snake, and with every curve, the landscape slowly began to change. The mountains gave way to the plains, coconut trees appeared, then banana plantations, and villages slowly came alive around me. People going about their daily lives, while I simply kept riding, letting the road take me wherever it wanted. As I rode towards Ketapang, something felt different. I remember, just 10 days ago I had landed here, not knowing how this ride would unfold. And now, almost 1,000 kilometers later, here I was, completely soaked in the beauty of Java and the warmth of its people. I had come here chasing dreams, and somewhere along the way, those dreams had turned into memories. Memories I knew I would carry long after I left. The journey wasn't ending, but my time in Java was. And as I rode towards the ferry, I knew I was about to leave this beautiful island behind. Sitting on the ferry, watching Java slowly disappear into the distance, my mind began to drift back through the last 10 days. I remembered the speechlessness of Prambanan and Borobudur, riding through the rain in Dieng, the quiet peace of Telagangabel, and standing in awe before Semeru. I remembered the fear of the Sea of Sand, the terrifying Bromo crater, and the feeling of standing before Tumpak Sewu, completely lost for words. With a heavy heart, I whispered my goodbye. Goodbye, Java. As the ferry arrived at Gilimanuk, I was back on the road again. Riding along the West Bali National Park, I could already feel that something had changed. In Java, I was greeted by archways saying, Selamat Datang. But here in Bali, there were these towering split gates welcoming me in. The mosques that lined the roads in Java were now replaced by Hindu temples. Even the people felt different, simpler in Java, more polished here. And somehow, all it took was crossing an island to enter a completely different world. After changing my engine oil, I resumed the ride. And then, the rains came crashing down. I remember the first day of this journey, in Java. The rain had welcomed me there too, on the Dieng Plateau. And now, on my very first day in Bali, as the rain soaked through my clothes, I couldn't help but smile. It felt strangely familiar, almost as if the island was welcoming me in its own way. Not with a grand arrival, but with something as simple as rain. And as I continued riding through the rain, I began noticing the Hindu temples lining the road. There was something comforting about seeing them everywhere. After days of riding through places that felt completely unfamiliar, suddenly, I was seeing something I knew. The temples reminded me of India. They had their own distinct character, their own way of telling the same stories of faith. The architecture was different. The details were different. But the feeling behind them was somehow familiar. And that small sense of familiarity, in a place so far from home, made Bali feel a little less foreign. The road so far had taken me through little towns. Sometimes I was riding right along the coastline, and at other times, the green mountains would appear in the distance. But after crossing Banjar, I decided to turn inward, and almost immediately, the road began to change. The wide roads gave way to narrow lanes, winding through small villages, coconut trees, and temples tucked away between the houses. Every few minutes, there was something new to notice. Another candy bentar, a burst of pink bougainvillea, white frangipani flowers scattered along the road, and flowers of every color growing almost everywhere. It felt like Bali had turned up the color, not just in its temples or its landscapes, but in the smallest corners of everyday life. And riding through those little villages, I found myself slowing down. Not because the road demanded it, but because I simply didn't want to miss anything. By now, it was almost 4:30 in the afternoon. I was passing through a village called Siddhatapa. The road had started climbing uphill, winding its way deeper into the hills. Above me, the clouds had turned a deep gray, a quiet reminder that the rain wasn't too far away. But for now, life in the village carried on as usual. People were going about their daily routines, some working around their homes, others out cleaning the roads and keeping the village neat. There was something peaceful about watching it all. The simple rhythm of village life, the sound of my bike climbing through the hills, and the gray sky slowly gathering above me. After a while, the road became even more peaceful. The roadside was beautifully lined with colorful plants, and every now and then, a rice field would appear through the greenery. Sometimes, coconut trees would rise above it all, and slowly, the vegetation around me grew thicker, almost closing in on the road. It had started to drizzle by then, just a light rain falling through the trees. The road was quiet, the air felt cool, and everything around me seemed to slow down. There was something magical about riding through it, alone on the bike, with the drizzle and endless green all around me. Soon after, the quiet drizzle turned into a heavy shower, the drops falling on my body, and the greenery around me somehow looking even more alive. And so was I. There was a strange sense of energy in me, a feeling of peace, and of being completely in harmony with everything around me. There's a certain kind of happiness that comes with riding in the rain, a feeling that's difficult to explain. Maybe it takes me back to being a child. I remember having a bicycle, riding through the rains in Goa, with absolutely no reason to be out, other than the simple joy of riding. Maybe that's what the rain brings back, Those innocent emotions we experience as children, when happiness is so easy to find and so easy to experience. Back then, you didn't need much. A bicycle, an open road, and the rain coming down was enough to make you want to keep riding. No destination, no reason. Just the simple joy of being out there, feeling the rain on your skin, and feeling completely alive. Sometimes, the clouds would descend so low that I found myself riding right through them. The rain, the greenery, the clouds. Everything came together to create this almost magical atmosphere. No wonder people fall in love with Bali. And somewhere along this ride, I think I was beginning to understand why. But as I continued riding, the rain slowly faded behind me, and within a few minutes, I reached a viewpoint overlooking the twin lakes of Tamblingan and Buyan. The evening light was beginning to fall across the water, with the mountains rising quietly around them. After riding through the rain and clouds, the sudden change in the landscape felt almost surreal. I was riding towards Bedugul as the last light of the day began to fade. The little town was glowing in soft lights, with gray clouds hanging quietly above. And suddenly, I felt the weight of the day. I had been awake since 2 a.m, the blue fire, the ferry, the sadness of saying goodbye to Java, and the quiet excitement of being welcomed by Bali. It had all happened in a single day. And now, perhaps it was time to find a cozy place to lie down. I found a little hotel in Bedugul, and as night fell, I lay there in the quiet, listening to the rain falling outside.